Hello everyone, welcome to a new tutorial series where we will be making a PS1 style horror game set in a night shift at a gas station. For this series, we'll be making a player controller, tasks, NPCs, cutscenes, and chase sequences. But for today's video, we will be making a simple player controller and a box that the player can carry around. So, as you can see, we have some folders here. We have scenes with interactables, player, and world. I have a separate folder for scripts, but this is totally optional. So we'll go ahead to project settings, and we're going to go into input map. We're going to add two new actions. So it will be interact and hold interact. Interact, which will be E, will be handling any kind of grabbing or interacting with an NPC. And for hold interact, which will be F, this is going to be handling any kind of restocking or doing actions such as mopping a floor. So for right now, we can just close this off and we'll go ahead and add a 3D scene. We'll name this to world, and we want to have some kind of floor that the player can walk on. So let's go ahead and add a static body. I'm going to add a static body, and you're going to notice we need a collision shape. So let's go ahead and add a collision shape. We'll go into shape and add in a box shape. And we'll want to also add a mesh instance. And this will allow us to have some kind of visual representation for our floor. So we can go ahead and, there it is. We can add in this box mesh. And so we'll also want to set it to be bigger. I'm going to set it 20 by 20. That'll be 20 on the X and 20 on the Z axis. And I'll add in here for the collisions as well. And we are set. So we can also add in a world environment. And we'll create here a new world environment. And we can set here our background. I'll just set it as a black color. And then we'll add in a directional light 3D. We will be configuring all this stuff in the next episode when we add in our models, and we'll want to set our ambience. But for right now, this is good enough to see where our player is. So we can save this. I hit Control Shift S, and we can go under Scenes, World, and I'm going to name this as world.tscn. So let's go ahead and create our player controller. We're going to click New Scene, and we're going to do Other Node, and we'll want to add a character body 3D. And we'll just name this to Player. Click here again, and we're going to add a collision shape. For the shape specifically, we'll want a capsule shape. And the reasoning behind that is because when we add in our own models and we give them collisions, most of them are going to have very hard square edges. And so this round shape here is going to allow us to just smoothly walk over without any problems. So I'll have this here, and we'll also add in a camera 3D. And this camera 3D can be brought up a little bit, and we can just push it out a little more. And that'll just act as the vision for our player. And lastly, let's add in a raycast. Since we want to be able to grab things, we're going to add this in. And before we move it around, I'll just add it as a child to camera 3D. And this is because when we look around with the camera, we want this raycast to be able to look at the correct thing. And so the best way to do that is just to have it in the same line of vision as this camera. So we'll bring this up and we'll do this at 90 degrees. You can go under transform and set this rotation here for the x-axis at 90. And you can click here using this gimbly over here to get perfectly on this angle and just push it up over to here. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'll actually bring it up a little bit more here so we have more room. And I'm going to set the length to -2 on the y-axis, so we have a greater range for grabbing stuff. and I'm going to do Control Shift Save. And I'll go back here, I'll go under player, and I'm going to just save it as player.tscn. So now we just need to add in a script for our player. So we can actually just add this script button here and rename it. Well, actually, for me, I will put this under scripts. So under the scripts folder, player, save it as player.gd. And so you're going to notice there is already a template for basic movement. So character, body, 3D, basic movement. So we can create this. And we already have some movement script for the player. So if we go back to our world and we click this little link, we're going to be able to add in an existing scene. We'll bring up the player a little bit so he's above the ground. We'll save by doing Control S, and we can click F6 or this little button here to test this specific scene. And so as you can see, we can move around, but you're going to notice that we can't actually control the camera at all. So we of course want to fix this. So I'll just close out of this. And one thing I also noticed is under project settings, we will maybe want to add in our WASD controls. So click here in show built-in function actions, and we'll go under here starting at UI left. We'll click this little button and press A for our left and D for our right, W for up, and S for down. So now we can close this down and we can head over to the player script. So for this demo, I'm just not going to include any jumping since for most of the gameplay, we're not going to need any jumping. But if you do want to include jumping, just leave jump velocity and this chunk of code inside of your code. So I'm going to replace this with this. So we have here mouse sensitivity and hold distance. Hold distance will just be how close the object is to the camera. And so since we already have here the distance of which the player can reach, you can influence the variable here. Okay, and so we'll also want to include these two onReady variables. And so this is going to define the camera and raycast. As you can see here, there are these two dots here. This is just inferring the type. So when this infers the variable, it's going to infer as camera 3D, and it's going to infer this type as raycast 3D. And it seems like it cut off here. There we go. So we can save. I did Control S. And so we'll want to add in next this chunk of code here. Vertical rotation is going to influence the vertical rotation of our camera. And so we'll add in here our function ready. And so this is just going to capture the mouse, and we're going to be disabling our raycast by default. And this is because we don't need it to be on all the time. It will just constantly be checking things that it doesn't need to check. So whenever we press E to interact with something, it will enable it. Otherwise, it will just be disabled. So we have here our unhandled input. And so we can just press cancel, aka escape, to lock in our mouse and to unlock it. And then this is just a chunk of code that allows us to control our camera. So if you want to change the sort of level of movement for the camera, you can change these two values here. This will influence the up and down amount. So this is a pretty good amount. If you want the player to be able to look all the way down and all the way up, you can just set these to 90. But I wouldn't recommend any more past this, since otherwise your character will be able to look behind himself. So for our next chunk of code, we're just going to replace the physics process. Now again, if you want to have your player be able to jump, then just keep this chunk of code here, but otherwise we're going to remove it and replace it with this. And so all that's really changed is that we're adding this if held object statement, and we're essentially checking if the held object is not null, then we're going to hold it in front of our camera times the hold distance. Lastly, for the player script, we're going to add in handle interact. And so here we're checking if we have a held object. We're going to just drop it since we're pressing E again. We're going to enable our raycast so we can check if there's anything in front of the player. So if it's not colliding with anything, it's just going to disable the raycast and return, aka finish the function. Otherwise, it will get whatever is colliding with it and is going to check this target, which is the collider, and check if it has the method pick up, which is the method, aka the function that our pickupable object slash box is going to have. And as you can see here, held object becomes this target, target.pickup, which is another function of this box that we're going to create. And we're going to disable raycast again. And this is because we don't need to have it anymore. All it does is just check, is there an object in front of us? If there is, then we pick it up. So if we were to leave this enabled, then it could cause some issues down the line. Okay, so we can do Control S to save this. And now let's create our box. So we're going to do a rigid body 3D, and we'll just call this, call it supply box, since that's what its intended purpose is going to be in the future. And we're going to add in a collision shape. We'll make this a square, aka a box, and we're going to also add in a mesh instance to represent it. So we'll add in a box mesh, and we're going to save this, Control Shift S, and we're going to do supply box. We'll go back here under interactables and scenes, and we're going to save this as supply box. And so now we're going to add in our script. So click here, and we'll just have an empty template script. We'll click their folder here, go back here, scripts, interactables, and we're going to save this as supplybox.gd and create. So now we can just include a variable called isHeld, and it's going to infer that this is a bool and it is false. And we're going to have here our pickup function, and this is, as you've seen from the previous part of the code, what enables the player to pick up this object here. So this will also freeze the box, and freezing is a part of rigid bodies in Godot that basically disables physics for the rigid body. And so when you disable this, aka when it's unfrozen, it will do its physics like normal. And we'll also disable the collisions. That way it can clip through different collisions. That way we can carry around easily. But this will be enabled once again when we drop it. So as you can see, we're unfreezing, it's not being held anymore, and the collision is now enabled. So we're pretty much all set here. We can do Control S to save. And now we can go into our world and click here on our world. We'll instance a new scene and we'll add in our supply box. We'll bring this supply box up over here and we'll just save and we'll test run this specific scene. So as you can see, now we can actually control our movement of the camera. And we have here a box, which if I press E, it's going to lift it up. Of course, there's no light right now, so it kind of is difficult to see with the harsh lighting, but we do have a functioning player controller that allows us to pick up boxes and just walk around in a pretty basic base plate. If you like this video or found it helpful, please do subscribe, leave a comment, and leave a like. It helps the channel, helps the video, and it shows that people want to see more of this series. So for our next episode, we're going to be adding in 3D models, lighting, as well as adding in shelves for our future tasks. Otherwise, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.